Hi, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. Check it out. I got to give a big shout out to my show sponsor, my friends over at AVLX. I also have to give a big shout out to Charles Henry and Ace Young, the amazing performers and producers of the music behind the show, as well as the amazing people that make up the Hit Lab creative team, who are the producers of the show. Folks, I have a favor to ask. If you like what you hear, and I know you do, click that subscribe button to make sure you get alerted when new episodes are dropped. Thanks for tuning in.
The real success stories told by the people who live them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the hit streak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of The Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and I got an unbelievable treat for you folks in the studio today. In the Hit Lab, I've got none other than the mayor of Music Row. I've got Charlie Monk in the building. Charlie, thank you so much for being here, brother.
Seeing you again. I have not seen you in a long time. I've tried to keep up with you, but you've been a busy boy. And your father and I were chatting. He said, you know what you really should do is do Nick's podcast. I said, I've never done a podcast. I've been doing, radio, satellite radio now for 20 years. And so I haven't needed to. I didn't need the exposure and those kind of things. But I did want to see, because everybody that now sees me that's involved in the broadcasting community, radio, television, anything like that. So, Charlie, what you really need to do is do a podcast sometime.
You do need to do a podcast.
Because of your career, it adds to that. And so I said, well, maybe one of these days. And the late Charlie Pride and I were proud. He had mentioned both of us doing one together one time, and we never got. And they said, you still ought to write a book, too. Mm-hmm. Just dealing with that, kind of thought, I need to find out what podcasting. And I've listened to them. I just haven't. I didn't even know how related or how closely related they were to TV or to radio. So I'm here. I'm here to learn something from you, Nick. Remember that, okay? So you better be good today, okay?
I will, and I got it taken care of. I know my part. I'm here to learn, though, Charlie. I'm here to learn. I got a rich and famous person with me in the building today. So, all right. So we've been talking a lot off camera, some of it on camera, but let me just. I want to make sure everybody understands. Like you got into the business over 6 decades ago, right? In a small out of a small town. You come from not much. Right?
No, I was raised in a cotton patch, basically. My folks were tenant farmers, or my mother was a domestic. She cleaned people's houses and cooked for them, took care of the babies and things like that. Mm-hmm. My father was a house painter. And so we didn't have running water and electric lights for a period of time. So that wasn't fun. I never made a chore out of it. I was really never ashamed of it. I was the baby of the group. So I was kind of nurtured. I had a sister and a brother and a sister. Mm-hmm. I was the first person to finish high school on either side of my family.
Interesting.
And that was important to me because, it was a community where there were a lot of uneducated people. And so I guess that kind of pushed me down the road a little bit, saying, but I knew I had to have a job, and I had to be able to do something. I picked cotton for $3 for 100 pound. You know how hard it is to pick 100 pound of cotton.
Well, how much does a pound even like? How much cotton is a pound? I mean, one little cotton ball don't weigh nothing.
Well, you can get a pound in that cup you got over there.
Okay.
But you got $3, 100. I couldn't pick 100 pounds in a day of cotton,
right?
An whole day. So I got paid less than $3 a day.
Wow.
My mother, who weighed 100 pounds, could pick 100 pounds of cotton because
mothers can do anything.
Well, she had five children to help raise. It was just poor, tough times,
Yes, sir.
And she had, my mother had actually 4 of us that, well, 3 in the Army. She had a son in 41, my oldest brother, and one in 51, and I got in 61. So my mother was always dealing with issues like that and stuff.
Incredible. Yeah.
But I don't know. God gave me a lot of things, and one of them was He gave me wit, charm. He gave me everything except talent. Had He given me talent, I'd have been a huge star because I had all the other things. But He gave me a desire to be kind of involved in the art community. We just had radio. We didn't have television.
Right.
So, I'd listen to radio shows.
That's how you fell in love with radio, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah, I guess. I mean, I didn't think in terms. I didn't even think I could ever be part of it. And
well, that was the radio was the big stage back then, right?
Actually, yeah, there was no we had one person that had a TV in my town, and all the kids gathered around to see Elvis on the Ed Sullivan Show, and the rest was history for that.
That's right.
I didn't ever want to be in radio. I wanted to be Elvis.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. But Elvis was unique, and I guess I wanted to be unique. I didn't want to be Charlie Monk, the poor kid who lived on the other side of the levee. Yeah, so
I think that's so important what you just said. That deserves a hit to the hit streak right there because, one, you had clear-cut goals. You wanted to be rich and famous from the moment you were a child, right? And you just said you didn't want to be remembered as poor. You didn't want to be remembered as basically you knew you had to get somewhere else from where you started, right? And
everybody in my town was richer than me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it's funny. Most people will use that in one of two ways. They'll either to say, I'll never get somewhere because I'm too broke to get there, or they'll say, I'm going to get somewhere because I am broke, right? It's going to be one way or the other every single time.
Yeah, I think you got to have some desires, and you got to have confidence. You got to figure out, if I'm going to do this, I've got to rely on this myself. I can't put this on the back of some guy down the street who's got his own problems with family and stuff like that. I used to walk by a pecan tree and shake it and pick up all the pecans that fell down and take them to somebody else's house and sell them.
Yeah.
I didn't give the people because they were, out on the streets when they fell out of the tree.
That's right.
So I sold boiled peanuts. It's my favorite. Boiled peanuts and fried crab claws is my favorite food, by the way.
Okay.
But boiled peanuts, I sold boiled peanuts for 10 cents a bag.
Yep.
That same bag now sells for like $6.
Yes, sir.
And but I would sell boiled peanuts up and down the street.
So a lot of folks would say they'd see Charlie Monk and they'd say, when I grow up, I want to be that. And I think it's incredibly inspiring that how far you've come. Because how easy of a road was it to become? All the things that you broke through, all the barriers you broke down, all the changes that you've made in the industry, right? So that stuff ain't easy. You got to know how to, you got to know how to sell. You got to know how to, you got to have a plan. You got to be able to do a lot of things to convince a whole lot of other people that this is a good idea.
Well, I tell a lot of people. I also get the opportunity to make speeches, and I taught at music business courses at MTSU and Trevecca here in Nashville. But trying to, most young people that come to college in Nashville, they come to college so they can be a star. That's the first thing they go to mind. They can be a successful songwriter, a successful musician, a successful singer. They don't think in terms of, I can start a music publishing company. I can do other things. I can sing, but I've got to be able to get out there on the road and entertainment, and I've got to get the gigs.
Yeah.
And so consequently, I want to encourage them to think in terms, it's all a sales game.
There you go.
You've got to sell you to start with.
So we were talking before, you're known as the mayor of Music Row, right? There's only been one. And there may never be another one. I guess they'll have to ask you first, won't they?
Pay me.
There you go.
There have been other people that have made, I should say, it's either used that term.
Okay.
Not to to my discredit necessarily.
But they don't own the copyright on it, do they?
And they, it was just a term. To me, it was a life career.
Absolutely.
To me, when I started using it, I was in radio, and it was my term.
Yeah.
And, people actually refer to me now as the mayor of Music Row. I mean, just
That's right.
People get a little confused sometimes and say, oh, he's the mayor of Nashville. Well, that isn't the term, but I don't change it.
Right. So you have done publishing. We mentioned the radio, the hosting. You've been a producer. You've been a writer, an artist, an actor. You've managed people. You mentioned that you taught courses at Trevecca, at Trevecca and MTSU, right? Like you said, you said you always just wanted to stay relevant. You always wanted to stay relevant.
Still do. That hasn't gone away.
Well, that was actually one of the questions that I had. So we'll just go right into that question, right? And what has made you want to stay relevant for so long? Like, obviously, your family and you were fine financially.
Well, I married a lady who was very strong, very, very comfortable in her own shoes and boots or whatever she wore. Mm-hmm. She started her own business and was very successful at that. She didn't need me hanging around.
Sure.
Suggesting what she might or might not do, and I never did that. But I felt like that if I was in the music business and you heard the name Charlie Monk, or if I made a call to somebody in the music business, I wanted them to know who I was. I didn't think of the term relevance. So I was interviewing a very successful songwriter by the name of Bob McDill, and he retired. He literally shut everything down, songwriter, because he had a lot of hits. And so consequently, I finally talked to him and letting me interview him, and I go, because he was the type of songwriter that went to work every Monday morning, every day. He went and had an office, and he would either write songs by himself or collaborate with somebody, but they'd come, and that was a job.
He was working.
And I asked him, I said, what do you miss about not having your day job? Songwriting. And that was his term. He said, being relevant. Because all of a sudden, nobody was necessarily calling him.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to be somebody that knew a whole lot about his past career, because he had no current career, because he wasn't coming down every day, he wasn't talking. And so, but I mean, if you just say his name is relevant enough.
Sure.
But the fact that he thought that, I thought, that's exactly the way I feel. The term that I feel is that I don't want to leave with I don't want to be the one to have to turn the lights out when I leave.
Sure.
I'd really like somebody go, well, Charlie's left, we can turn the lights out now.
Well, you mentioned before, we had talked about the word authenticity. And one of the most, we talk about sales, and you talk about being able to sell yourself. Self-promotion is extremely important in just about anything. If you can't get anybody else to believe in you if you don't believe in you, right? And you've done it in a way that, if you ask the average person about self-promotion, they might say selfish or something. They would relate it to something ugly. How being authentic, you've been able to be true to yourself, and nobody would say that the way you do it is ugly at all.
Well, somebody jokingly said to me, maybe a year or so ago, said something that, there's a lot of pictures of you on your Facebook page. And I thought, no, there are a lot of pictures. I mean, I don't know anybody, you may, but there are 1,200 pictures of me on my Facebook page, all of them with celebrities.
A different one, too, a different celebrity.
Yeah. Frank Sinatra, Dolly Parton. I got Dolly Parton singing I Will Always Love You on my Facebook page.
That's right.
Kind of cool.
Dang right it is.
And she sang it I was injected into being in the Disc Jockey Hall of Fame, and she did a video saying nice things, and she closed it with, and I will always love you, Charlie Monk.
That's right.
And I after they woke me up from passing out, but I wanted that.
Sure.
And everywhere I go now, I play that for somebody. It's on my phone. Would you listen to this, Dolly singing? And I did a movie with Dolly.
Yeah.
Well, there's a clip in the something called Blue Valley Songbird, and guess where that clip is? It's on my Facebook page. Mm-hmm. Dolly talking to Charlie Monk, but he's got another name there.
That's right.
And I guess there used to be a little of that tinge, because you also get a lot of gouging from, especially your best friend. They go, damn, if I see one more picture of you, Charlie Monk, I am going to throw up.
Well, they're just jealous that they don't have the pictures to post.
Yeah. If you got a picture of Dolly singing Happy Birthday or anything to you, no. So, yeah.
I don't. Well, I would say not yet is what I would say instead of no. For me, it's always not yet.
Yeah, I went to a party in '74 here, one of the opening parties of the Grand Ole Opry House, and it was Frank Sinatra was performing there that night.
Okay.
And so I got invited. They only invited 50 people, a party for Frank Sinatra. And he'd just gotten married. But I have a copy of that picture of me and Frank. Frank laughing at me, asking me where I got my toupee, which was not a toupee. But he's laughing. They don't know why he's laughing, but that's what he's laughing at. He thinks I've got a wig on.
Yeah.
And over the years, a friend of mine conducted for him in Vegas, and I got him to get me backstage to see Frank in his element. And guess what? I got to do that. I mean, that's cool.
Wow.
I hosted a show at the White House with Jimmy Carter there.
Wow.
Gospel show. And we had more fun. But I don't know a lot of people that got a chance to host a show. Now, there are a lot. But, I mean, again, people in my hometown, Geneva, Alabama, got a chance to see me doing a show at the White House.
Absolutely. So, in your hometown, you have a road named after you?
Well, yeah, street.
A street, Charlie Monk Lane.
Yep.
Right, in Geneva, Alabama.
Yep.
And that happened when? When did that happen?
5 years ago.
5 years ago. That is too cool. Not many people have a street named after them,
Well, they asked me, I knew they were going to do it, obviously, because I had to be there for the presentation. And they asked, what do you want? You want it Charlie Monk Street, Charlie Monk something? I said, no, what could be musically? I said, how about Lane, Charlie Monk Lane? That's the only lane there.
Oh, wow, okay.
Charlie Monk Lane. So if you have to... And the first time I really saw it after it had been weighed for a few months. And I go down there. There's a lot of buckshot in it. And that's pretty sad.
Is it really? Oh man. Well, Charlie, I was fortunate enough to grow up. You mentioned that you worked with my dad. I was fortunate enough to grow up as a kid and just be there. Just because maybe I didn't have a ride home or whatever it was, I was just there a lot. And whether I meant to or not, I paid attention to everything. And I can still remember, this must have been like 94, 95 when I was sitting in Dad's office and Perry Danos was sitting in the chair next to me and he was young and trying to make it and get his break and everything. And you walked in, and you and Dad were working with Perry, and Perry had a ball cap on, and normally he was clean shaven. He had a little bit of stubble where he was trying a little facial hair thing. And you walked in, the first thing he said, he pointed at him, you said, "What's that?" And he just kind of looked at you, and you said, "You're a star, man. You got to shave that. You got to shave that."
I don't remember that, but it sounded like something I do.
You remember? Well, you were, and just hearing you talking to Dad, like you had mentioned somebody, you'd be like, that person, if they'd have done this, they would have been a star. There were certain things that you just paid attention to. You always learned, and you just knew what the mark was. You knew what mark you were aiming at.
Well, the reverse of that in a lot of cases, I saw people that would do things like smoke on stage. Mm-hmm. And I'd go, don't do that. That doesn't enhance anything about you.
Yeah.
You may smoke. I'm not going to treat you to a health lesson here. You shouldn't be doing it because I did it. I smoked for 20 years.
Right.
Dumbest damn thing I ever did in my life.
Yeah.
But I thought on stage, I mean, half the audience doesn't smoke.
Sure.
And they wish you weren't smoking because they just paid $100 to see you.
Right.
And anyway, little things. I used to notice those things, and the colors don't match at all. Mm-hmm. Or, you
knew what works.
Well, there were people that could do things, and you actually mentioned the word again, that people ask me, how did you know so-and-so was going to make it? And I said, well, I used to think it and didn't know I was thinking it, but later on I found it. That somebody asked me about, I worked with Randy Travis. I helped him get his record deal and stuff like that. And we changed the whole country music business with Randy Travis.
That's right.
I didn't take credit for it because I didn't sing and I didn't write. I didn't do what Randy did. All I did was sell him. Mm-hmm. And I did a pretty good job of that. But I said, the one thing that I feel that made Randy different was authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
He was authentic. Now, you had to like his sound.
Yeah.
That sound was authentic.
Yeah.
He knew. He couldn't have gone pop with a mouthful of firecrackers. He just knew what country music was and sang it and loved it.
Wow.
And wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
He did all those things.
Yeah.
And, of course, there's a history. And if you really want to know, read his book, his biography, that Ken Abram wrote, because it's got me in it. Selling again.
That's right.
But I think it's the same thing with Merle Haggard, Johnny Cash, Loretta Lynn. All these people, I've known these people for 50 years, almost every one of them individually, and they've never changed.
Right.
People used to talk about Willie's attire. Well, Willie liked that attire.
Yeah.
And guess what? Everybody in that honky-tonk in Texas liked it. Nobody in Nashville liked it.
Yeah.
But they all liked it. And if you go see Willie, chances are you're going to see him basically in the same attire he had on 40, 50 years ago.
That's right.
Or a close possibility.
Being true to yourself is whether well, first of all, I don't think you can be real successful if you're not, because you're never going to find your happiness. To me, success is a destination, right? And it's always changing, and it's always further and further away. Every time I get to one destination, I'm already aiming at the next one.
Well, people talk to me about celebrities,
Yep.
which is fine. I'm in the celebrity business. But if you look around and check who your banker are, chances are you thought him to be a real money man. Authenticity. He was what he was.
Mm-hmm.
And you trusted him to deal with your money or lend you money. But people don't talk about authenticity and that kind of fixation
Right.
on everybody. Somebody working in a grocery store might love, stealing the milk and drinking. No.
That's right.
But the word authenticity, if they wanted to be a writer, you got to write. You can't be a successful songwriter without inventory. That means you got to write some songs.
That's right.
And the one that you wrote, 12 years ago may not be the one. You may have to write a new one.
That's right. That's right. Once you have another one, they expect another one right after, don't they? Or once you have one, they expect another one right after. Let me ask you this. So you've worked with everybody over the last, just decade. You've worked with literally everybody. If they don't believe it, they can go to your Facebook page and look. And
1,200 pictures.
That's right. So working with an artist and working with business owners, they're all looking for some sort of a break. They're all looking for kind of the same things, just in different places.
Well, can I correct you?
Sure, please.
I want to correct you.
Come on with it.
See, those terminologies have to be identified.
Okay.
They're looking for a break. Now, what the hell does that mean? My point is, I've looked at that too. To me, they know. They're looking for what they're supposed to do, not a breakdown that somebody else is going to do for them. People go, well, it's all political.
Yes.
They know 6 people on music. No, that's not true. The people that helped along the way,
Yeah.
busted their butt getting to where they are.
Right.
And so they're not looking. They're looking for the authentic again. I'm pretty well sold on that.
Yes.
The guy that helps the next guy or the gal that helps the next gal, they were authentic to get where they are.
Right.
And
Right.
so that same thing, they know that they want to make a lot of money. They want to manage 6 acts. They want to have the biggest song catalog in town.
Yeah.
And they know what steps it's going to take. That might be a break in a sense, but they made the break.
Yes. So another word I could have used could have been opportunity.
Yeah.
That would have been a better word, right? So
If it's about money, I'm often people go, boy, he makes a lot of money. I used to, when Taylor Swift first struck, everybody was talking about that. It was a phenomenon. But I've said this about her, Eddie Arnold, Dolly Parton, and 2 or 3 other people. They were in charge of their career.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor Swift made Taylor Swift.
Yep.
Not somebody. Now, Scott Borchetta, who ultimately signed her, was also a musician, was in a band. I mean, he had all the qualifications
Yeah.
of recognizing talent. then he hired the right marketing people.
Yeah.
He had a staff of promotion people and sales people that he kicked their butt and said, get out here and get that radio station playing our record. He did that, but somebody else in most cases, and he relied on that person to do that.
How important is it to choose the right people when you're trying to do something?
In my career, it's been the most important thing in the world.
There you go.
In my 60 years or whatever that I've had to supervise people, I think I've dismissed 2.
You know, when you're raising kids, if your kids are getting in trouble and they're hanging out with somebody that does bad things, you tell them you can't hang out with them anymore. But we don't do that as adults, do we?
Oh, no, you're right, no. Now, I must tell you, that can be turned around on you. My oldest son one time, I said something to him about what you started that with. Son, you got to know that kid, Billy Jones or whatever his name was, his parents don't really care who he hangs around with.
Yep.
I care who you hang around with. And that ain't one of the people I want you hanging around with, because he might lead you in the wrong path. My son said to me, he said, Daddy, I might change him. And I thought, I must have done something right.
That's right. Well, I had the same conversation with my 12-year-old son literally day before yesterday. He has a buddy that is a great kid, but just, like most kids do, sometimes they think it's cool to be bad, right? And just talking to Ethan, it was like, buddy, if you want to continue to hang out with him, why don't you lead him instead of him influencing you? And he came back yesterday, and he came back. He told me the conversation. He said it worked. So it's amazing how leaders identify themselves. Right, they identify themselves, and I think that's a great little lesson. It can be done the other way around. So, but if you're an artist or a business or somebody seeking to start a new business or whatever, you need to be real careful who you choose to put in your circle. Somebody told me once, "Let me see your friends, and that's your future."
Well, back to Scott Borchetta, who Big Machine Records, he had that ability, the management ability, because the hardest job in any company is managing personnel. I don't care what it is. Mm-hmm. Managing personnel. Because if they're not doing what you expect them to do, it ain't going to get done.
That's right.
Or you're going to have to do it.
That's right.
So you better be able to motivate the staff to do what you're expecting them to do. But you got to know that they have the abilities, the training, the qualifications to do that job.
Right.
But giving you every excuse why they can't do it is not getting you any damn place.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
So, publisher, radio DJ, host, producer, writer, artist, actor, manager, college professor, I could go on and on and on. What are you most proud of out of all the things that I listed as far as what you'll be remembered for?
I could go to jail for that. Boy, that's a tough one, because
I was just curious.
The things that I have done or have been able to accomplish that I take credit for, which is everything. No, no, because you're running around, and it ain't money. I mean, the money comes from the success.
Sure.
In other words, if I recently sold a building on Music Row that I've had for 21 years.
Yep.
And I'm not going to go through the numbers, but it's a public record.
Sure. Well, it's Nashville Real Estate, and it's on Music Row, so I'm sure they can figure out to add the 0 and 14 commas.
Well, the point was that they meaning the realtors, were dealing with something, and they wanted to know where I wanted them to send the check. I said, don't send it to the damn place. Give it to me. I want to hold that check in my hand. That's my check. That's my money. Well, my wife was there too. I think she grinned and it ain't your money. That's my money. But anyway, but technically that was the most money that I ever had in my hand.
Okay.
Now I've worked with people. I've written contracts that were in lots of numbers, but that check was made to me.
Right.
And that's going back to my early years as a child, there was no way that I could make that money in my hometown. There's nothing I could have done. There's nothing in my hometown unless I wanted to buy a farm that I couldn't afford.
Sure.
And hold it for 30 years or something. Mm-hmm. And I'm still holding that check, by the way.
What is it framed on the wall yet?
No.
What, is that check going to be a celebrity photo on your Facebook with you when you holding it one day?
I hadn't thought about that. But the accomplishments. No, let me tell you something, Nick. This is Nick Hyder, folks, for people just tuned in. And I've known him most of his life. His father is a dear friend. Well, his whole family is pretty much. His grandpa used to kick my butt in the golf. But I think that just being where I am is my greatest accomplishment. I've had some illnesses over the last 4 or 5 years. I had open heart surgery.
Yep.
I had 5 bypasses. I had a defibrillator stuck right there with doo, 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 doo. Anyway, and then I had a hernia. All this has kind of been buckled, and all it's done is tried to slow me down. I'm a super hyper individual.
Right.
You find me buzzing on this wall.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you can't beat me down. Somebody said after I had open heart surgery, well, you're going to be really down. Mm-hmm. You're going to have all kinds of whiny days. And I go, ain't no way.
That's right.
My name is Charlie Monk. Ain't no way I could be down. Just because they cut me open and took 35 pounds out? No. I'm not going to make it. I never got depressed.
Well, your mind is, and the average people out there, a lot of time their circumstances define them, they do not. But so,
well, I forgot one other thing. The thing I'm most proud about is my children and their success. And my wife. My wife did not work outside the home except taught a little school and worked at her family's grocery store the first 20 years of our marriage. Then she decided, when our baby started to school, our baby of 4, she decided that she wanted to do something. She first wanted to study law, and then she was listening to television. Somebody started talking about managing finances. And she had always taken care of what few dollars we'd had. So she went and met the lady, and the lady that had given the speech talked her into starting her own financial planning firm.
How old was she when that happened, do you know?
Yeah, she was 40.
Oh, man, that's awesome. So it's never too late.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Never.
Now, it was not, she didn't go in there to make money.
Right.
Even though she was talking about money. She really took it on as a mission, basically to help some senior citizens, females, who maybe had not had the opportunity that maybe their spouse died. And it could work both ways. Sure. It died that was handling the money. Yep. And never gave them an understanding of where all the funds were and what their assets were. Mm-hmm. And so she put that through a getting together with women, pretty much. My wife was an activist, but she didn't go out on the streets. She tried to help women one-on-one.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And so, because my wife always believed that she was the smartest man in the room. Mm-hmm. I mean,
she probably was.
Yeah, definitely. She'd tell you that. Charlie Monk, you don't know what you're talking about. And she paid our light bill. And she paid every bill for those first 20 years. And one day, during her 20th year, she walked over to me with the checkbook. Because she was paying every bill, not some bills, every bill. Right. Because I didn't want to do it. No, it wasn't because she was smarter. I wanted to go listen to songs and listen to writers.
You're going to sell.
I was going to sell. I was trying to make us something. Mm-hmm. And so it was a case of where she just wanted to do this job and be a success. But her success came with her clients saying, well, you're doing me a hell of a job. Now, she was certified, so she couldn't tell me about her clients' money. Yeah. She'd gone to jail. So people would come up to me and go, Charlie, would you tell Royce? I'd go, no.
That's right.
Ain't telling her nothing. If you got something to tell her, you call her and tell her.
You got to wonder if that was a test sometimes.
May have been, yeah.
You know,
But I didn't do it. I wasn't going to get myself in trouble, I can tell you that.
well, most just like most starving artists, most starving business owners have a marketing problem because they're new and nobody knows they're there, right? So, and nobody can enjoy something from somebody that they don't know exists. So, we mentioned before that if you're, you know, you can't expect other people to like you if you don't like yourself. I tell people all the time, if you're going to be your harshest critic, you better be your biggest fan too. You know, talk to me about how to self-promote your talents, because I would say if you're not the best, well, you're probably the best, right? Have you ever met anybody better at it than you? See, that's why
Nobody cuter either.
There you go.
No, I have idols in the broadcasting field.
Who were some of your mentors? That's a great thing.
Well, not my mentors now.
Okay.
In the sense that I didn't work with them.
Okay.
Some of them were out of town and things like Dick Clark and people like that. He's in L.A. and
Sure.
But we had Arthur Godfrey. I learned that you never talk if you're on stage or if you're on the radio. You never talk, how y'all doing out there? Mm-hmm. If you're in a car, you look at where are the rest of y'all?
Yeah.
You never use that term
Mm-hmm.
when you're speaking.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking to one person,
Right.
multiplied by the number of people listening, which I always thought that was a great. For instance, if I host a show, I never go, how y'all doing?
Right.
I go, hi there, honey, how you doing? There's somebody over there just as pretty as you are. You know, or if I'm on the radio, I go, it's Wednesday. You know, it's church night for a lot. Are you going to church?
Mm-hmm.
Never mentioning a name.
Gotcha.
Because I'm only talking to one person.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so
There's something else that I watched happen. If I saw it one time, I saw it 10,000 times. Every time you met somebody, I'm not talking about meeting them for the first time. I'm talking about you've seen them today. Charlie, you introduce yourself, first and last name. Yeah. Why was that such an important thing for you to do?
I was with a guy one night, and we went to a party, and Tom T. Hall showed up, and Tom T. came over to speak to me, and the guy, Tom T. didn't know the guy, and the guy stood there for a minute. He says, Charlie Monk, tell this SOB who I am. Me tell him who you are?
Yeah.
He don't want to know now, I can tell you that. And
Yeah.
so I was pretty rude about that because it just didn't float my boat. And so, yes, if I met you, like we've been in this meeting for a little while, if you went to the men's room in a few minutes and came back, I'd introduce myself again.
That's right.
Yeah, because I ain't going to give you an opportunity to forget.
That's right. See, oh my gosh.
I mean, a lot of people go, oh.
Most people ask for permission to sell.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's not sales.
I'm never going to see them again. So if I sell them something, I'll see them again. If I don't sell them something, I took my granddaughter, who's now 26, to see Britney Spears when she performed here in Nashville, when she was hot on a depot stove. And we were invited backstage to see her, and I was a big fan too. Mm-hmm. And my granddaughter was with me, and I said, would you like to go speak to Britney? She says, no, Poppy, she don't know who I am.
Not yet.
Well, but that was the fact that she was that observant
Right.
about the and you got to know what the circumstances are around.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying the things that I've said and done are all the right ones. Mm-hmm. Oh, I've alienated a lot of people, I'm sure.
Nobody's perfect. Nobody's undefeated.
So, no, I think that if you're looking, I've worked with artist clients that come to town because I do consulting work too for some. Somebody that I believe in. I don't take anybody. I've never taken somebody's money to introduce them to somebody.
Right.
But I just feel like that some of them, and they weren't my clients long, is wanted that person to make them a star. There's nobody in this town can do that.
Right.
There's nobody can make you a great songwriter.
Right.
they can help you. They can correct you.
Well, it's their responsibility to become the winner they want to be.
You walk out of that room, if that person that you met, you better have impressed that person.
Right. That's
and
right.
like I said about even supervising personnel, and I think you and I had this conversation because you had interviewed somebody earlier today,
Mm-hmm.
and me, I've never hired somebody from a resume. Now I think you should have a resume.
Sure.
In case the media. In my case, every now and then somebody wants to interview me,
Mm-hmm.
and they really want stats or data on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do have a resume, and I will give. But that's only if they want to use it. I'm not.
Sure.
I don't want them to have to sit there and go, "Oh Lord, it's another interview," and I got to read this thing.
Right.
So, I don't know.
So, obviously, introducing yourself, not giving people an opportunity to forget. Sales is 100% an offensive game, right? So sales is 100% an offensive game.
Well, you got to be able to be a closer. You got to.
There you go.
You got to mentally think of that. Is that somebody has got to get their name on the check.
There you go.
You got to know that that's the finality.
Yep.
On sales.
Right.
You can walk out and go, well, boy, I made a good impression on him. I didn't get the check, but you didn't do anything.
That's right.
You made a good impression on him. You may never see him again.
That's
And
right.
he didn't like you because you didn't ask for the check.
That's right. That's right. So, we talk about that in the sales world a lot. That like you have to ask for the sale.
Mm-hmm.
You have to ask for it. If you don't, you have to ask for the date, or you don't get it. You know what I mean? So you don't know you want to go out if you don't tell her.
Well, I'd tell her, but my wife stops it.
All right. So, obviously, learning how to self-promote. The evolution of gaining fame, gaining anything and whatever it is you're trying to get better at. You have to learn to network. You have to learn to network. You have to learn to utilize relationships, build relationships, cultivate relationships. I would say there's at least 1,200 good ones that we could go back and fact check right now just on your Facebook. But you introduce yourself like you know everybody, man. So how would somebody say, well, Charlie, he has all the relationships. I can't be him because of that. You didn't get here with him.
No. Matter of fact, I came to town and had to live in Murfreesboro. I worked at a radio station in Murfreesboro. So I had to come to town every night
Mm-hmm.
and go to parties and things every night. And I had 2 children, a wife. My wife wasn't very fond of that, I can tell you that.
Right.
But and I would go to a party or to a studio, and I would walk in and I'd go. So I'd hear somebody say, "Nick, talking to you," and so they'd walk away. I go, "Hey, Nick, I'm Charlie Monk. Have you seen Betty Smith?"
Mm-hmm.
And you go, "No, I don't know Betty." And I said, "Well, I was supposed to meet her here, and I can't find her. So you're Nick, right?"
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I wanted to make sure that she knew that you and I had at least talked and I'd been here. And then a week later, I'd come back and go to that same studio and, "Hey, Nick, how you doing? Good to see Charlie. Remember I was here the other night?" And guess who knew? We both knew each other before the week was out.
That's right. That's right.
I was very good at that. I am, but it's not going to work for everybody. I mean,
No, but how important is it to the overall ability to gain your success, to get where
well,
you
I
want
really think it was important for me.
to go? Yeah.
I drove that. I don't know that everybody can do that. If you're fat and ugly, it's hard.
Sure.
If you're skinny and ugly, it's not as hard, baby. But I mean, I'm just simply, and I apologize to anybody that's overweight or skinny, because I've been skinny all my life.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I used to walk over grates. I was so small. I didn't want to fall through those metal grates.
Yes, sir.
And, it was, and I would get into pictures and find myself moving, because I knew where that camera was, and I'd seen maybe a picture of it, and I'd make sure that I moved my body in, and I was always just stood on the right-hand side. You know why?
Why is that?
Think about it a minute.
Right-hand man? No.
If it's in a magazine, they identify the person on the right first.
Okay. Boom. Learn something new. Look at that. Look at that. That's awesome. Well, you mentioned something that you had to go to these parties and all these things, and that your wife wasn't that fond of it, right? So you had to do that. It wasn't forever. That was probably the relation that how you guys got through it. Is like, look, it's until we get to where we got it to this place, and then we don't have to do it as much anymore. It's not forever.
Well, my wife wasn't enamored with show folk.
Okay.
Because we would go to dinner, and my wife is somewhat of an intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
She's a Bible scholar, and she's a whole bunch of things. And so her conversations, she didn't want them limited. And so if we went out with a person in the music business, and they were a performer or something, chances are they wanted to talk about everything about them that's happened over the last month.
Right.
Or they got planned. And she was just so bored with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was never wasn't going to be about her, because she wasn't in show business.
Right.
And so she let me go a lot to think that, and that don't mean she had a rope around my neck.
Sure.
She said, "You just go on. You're going to have fun, and you're good at sticking your hand out." And I'm not good at that. I got ironing to do tonight. She took care of our children.
Absolutely.
And that was the most important thing to her. She helped them with their studies. Her undergraduate degree was education, so she worked with their studies, and she helped them with the girls. We had 2 girls, and was constantly helping them. The boys were pretty good by themselves because they were athletes and
mm-hmm.
they played sports. But guess we always had a mama or daddy at that sporting event. Nobody, none of my kids ever had to appear at an event or a show or something without a parent there.
So that's kind of everybody, most people budget their money. Most people budget their money, but very few people actually spend as much time budgeting their time as they do budgeting their money. With 4 kids, in the business in which you were growing it, and then managing, so she didn't stay at home every day. There was stuff she liked to do, stuff she was going to do too, and then stuff you guys did together. Managing your time, how were you able to manage all these relationships, including the one at home, and still be at the ball games and all that kind of stuff?
Well, we talked about it.
Okay.
It wasn't something.
It was intentional?
I never invited anybody to my house for dinner
mm-hmm.
without first checking with my wife. Never.
Mm.
And so I didn't have a note that says, "Hey, the Hiders are coming to dinner next Thursday night." If I had done that, I'd be looking for a lawyer.
Right.
I'm dead serious, because I was making decisions for her, and she adored me, and she, which was a compliment, she didn't want to go anyplace without me unless it was a very close friend that she was going.
Right.
She just didn't want to go with a bunch of girls or ladies or
Sure.
anybody.
Sure.
Just to be going someplace. She had things to do that satisfied her and her career at the house.
Mm. Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this. So you've been in the industry with multiple roles for decades. So how has the music industry changed over the years? And then what was your thought process in staying relevant, adapting with those changes?
Well, I never found any of them to be catastrophic.
Okay.
I never found the industry as a whole dying.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I found it growing.
Okay.
Now, what?
So the changes were for growth.
Well, or otherwise they were. Why would you even think about it? Why would you even worry about them?
That's right.
I never wanted to hang around with anybody going, "Oh, damn, they're not doing that this week." They should be doing. No, they're doing what they want. I tell people, they say, "Well, so and so won't play our record."
Mm-hmm.
I said, and it's political and all that stuff. And I go, and they'll go, "Well, they just won't play our record, and our record's hit." I said, "You forget something. Every radio station in America wants to play what the public wants to hear.
That's what's in it for them, right?
That's in it for them."
Mm-hmm.
And guess what it is? It's also in it for the record company.
Right.
They're not in there to make somebody in Montgomery, Alabama happy because their child has got a record out and they want to hear it.
Right.
They want the largest audience they can get. And the radio station wants to promote that too. Mm-hmm. So if it's a good song and a good record, it's going to become popular because that radio station is playing. The radio station's not going to play it if they think it's bad just because you think it's wonderful.
Right. That's right. Well, so staying relevant during all the changes and stuff. What was so me personally, graduated school, played 5 years of professional sports active, and after that got into the hospitality industry. You were actually nice enough to come eat a pizza at my first restaurant. Hope you're still here, so that's good.
Well, I left the pizza in the car.
That may be.
That's been 20 years ago, hasn't it?
It may be it. When I started my insurance company, I was so broke that I had to ask my parents for the money to take the insurance exam. And I've reinvented myself multiple times. Every time it had to be better. You've kind of done that to a certain degree over and over again. And, every single time for me, it was a lot of learning. It was a lot of, I'm still finding myself. I'm still,
Well, I couldn't fail.
Right.
That never crossed my mind.
Okay.
Failing.
Say that again. You couldn't do what?
I couldn't fail. But let me tell you something. The only job that I ever quit, I had a wife and 3 children and just bought a house 30 days before and didn't have $500 to my name.
Mm-hmm.
I quit a radio station because I was the program director and I had told the management, there's a guy that's working here, and if I'm going to have to supervise him, I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
But he's never going to be on this radio station again. Well, I was riding around town, and all of a sudden he's on the air. Somebody in the management said, you go in there. Well, I just walked in and resigned, which is probably made at that point the dumbest thing I ever did.
Okay.
Except I'd wanted to be in the music business, and by that time I had met, by going up to Nashville, I'd met a lot of people, and of course they knew me because, again, I was playing their records down here.
That's right.
It actually was a station that was covered in Nashville, too.
Okay.
The station was licensed to Murfreesboro. But we, I was hoping my kids would wake up with something to play with at Christmas time, or otherwise they wouldn't have Christmas.
That's right.
But there was a sad moment. I mean, we just really had no money.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I've ever just up and quit a job. Now and not have a job. I've gone to another job.
Right.
But I usually plan those. If I got offered a job, it was some job that I'd set you up in to say, tell that guy to talk to me about that new job, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And really build me up now if you do that.
That's
Be a
right.
salesman.
That's right.
But I didn't. Yeah, I didn't. I never worked at a job that I hated enough to quit, except I'd given this guy an ultimatum.
Yep.
And I had to live with it. But boy, it taught me some things. We paid only the bills that were due. We didn't worry about any bill for next month.
Okay. We
just paid for the whole thing. So anyway, we have customized our life in that respect, that we wasn't going to do it like Nick and his wife did it, but we might steal enough ideas from Nick and his wife to do it. But it was always about our kids.
You're always paying attention and learning from others, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Hell, I barely. I flunked geography in college.
Yeah.
How do you flunk geography? you know that Birmingham is right there. No, where is Birmingham on the map?
Well, you mentioned before that you had walked or made some bad deals or didn't come out on the right end of deals and stuff like that. Obviously, you've came out on the good end of way more deals than you didn't. Nobody's undefeated. What was one of the ways, so especially in the sales game, you get told no a lot, right? You get told no. That's part of it. I tell every writer, they'll go, God, I've taken that song to Nick Hyder 20 times. He said no every time. Let me tell you something. I have, Charlie Monk, in my career in the music business, I've probably listened to 10,000 songs. Mm-hmm. None of them, nothing happened to any of them. Yep.
But over the years, because some days I'd probably believe your father was in the music publishing business. Mm-hmm. I mean, you might go and make 20 pitches
Yeah.
of 2 songs. That's 40 songs you've pitched that day.
Right.
And you do that 4 or 5 times a week. I mean, that becomes a lot. So I never let it. Well, I used to tell everybody that I played the song how stupid they were.
Right.
But they weren't because, by the way, a lot of people ask me, well, did any of those songs later happen? Nope. So the people who were listening were smarter than I was.
Right.
But I wasn't. I didn't take them 6 songs, sit there,
Right.
mercy through. I took them 2 at the most.
What would be, so how did you learn to do that? That's the hardest thing in anything, is just being told no and understanding that doesn't mean it's over, right? It's only over when you quit, right?
Yeah, you only lose what you lost.
That's right.
You can't lose anything you won. You might not. And again, I think one of the things that we've created, we collectively, the American culture. See, I also grew up where there was no way I could make $1 million.
Right.
When I graduated from high school, I knew every millionaire in America.
Okay.
And I can't remember. I think it was like, I knew their names. I didn't know them.
Sure. You knew of them.
They were in the news. They were constantly in the news. And I think somebody told me there are 900 billionaires in America now.
Mm-hmm.
I knew every millionaire.
That's right.
I can't even name me every millionaire now. Making that kind of money,
Mm-hmm.
if you're the kids, see, and quite frankly, unless I see them on the streets, I've not been invited to their house. Everybody that I lived with and knew in my culture were poor.
Okay.
They didn't own their house.
Right.
We didn't have movies and TVs and things like that. The people were asleep. They were dinner and sleep by 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And they were up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, you mentioned before too, the first year you guys did the country radio seminar, that it didn't. So I guess, was it considered a flop? I guess the first one.
Yes, because technically the guy that I mentioned, Tom McEntee, is really the guy. He came to my office and invited some people on a committee, and he and I, once we knew it wasn't going to happen or it didn't happen, he and I took it over. ASCAP, the company I work for, funded it. They let me do it for free.
Mm-hmm.
And so my secretary was, which ASCAP was paying, was the administrator.
Mm-hmm.
And then we finally, it was probably 4 or 5 years before it netted anything.
Yeah.
And we had some guys that were actually professors at MTSU that had put together some seminars with academic agenda. By the way, it was totally academic.
Okay.
And it's become the most successful event in the music business in any genre.
Right.
But particularly it's the biggest. I'm not sure, other than people like the NRA and things like that, I'm not sure it's not the business academic industry
Yeah.
meeting in Nashville.
Right.
There are a lot of them that, come to, they have displays. We didn't have any displays and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We just had events and talked about how you got to promote your records and, how you got a record deal maybe.
Yeah.
We didn't have any answers. We just made up and told the stories as you're doing now.
Right.
We just told the stories of the people that had gotten a record deal and maybe
Yes.
had a top 10 record, how they did it. And somebody else said, hey, maybe I can do that.
Well, you mentioned before, a lot of people have been telling you that you should have your own podcasts. You 100% should.
Because I'm cute or what?
Well, it's that's one reason. That's one reason. But no, it's because it's yours.
Because I'm authentic?
It would be more authentic than any show you've ever done. It would, because it's 100% yours. You don't have anybody telling you when you got to cut for commercial or do this or do that. It's just you and the stories that you're telling. And it would be as a matter of fact, the podcast is a great supplement to the book. They work side by side with each other.
I don't know. The book thing has been going on for 20 years, 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
People, Charlie, you really should write a book.
Absolutely.
And I go, who wants to listen to me talk about, being on a boat with Johnny Cash?
Everybody.
Well, yeah,
I can't think of anything cooler to listen to tonight.
Well, I just never have gotten that excited, or meaning not that I'm putting it down. But
Yeah.
I'm sure there are a dozen books about Johnny Cash that are on the bookstands now. But books are hard to do, they're time consuming, and they're expensive to do, and
That's right.
and they're not selling as big as they used to. They're hard to ship, transport. So I thought, well, Charlie, you're not getting into something that's going to make you a lot of money. It better be entertaining as hell. It just really better be. And so I haven't come up. A friend of mine and I wanted to write a bestseller.
Mm-hmm.
We wrote a book called A Bestseller. So I have actually written a bestseller.
That's awesome.
We couldn't even get it published.
Oh my gosh.
It was that bad.
Oh my
and
gosh.
It was funny as all get out. And then,
That's so smart though.
well, and then what did I call? I wrote a book about all the people I got pictures with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and what did I call? It's one page. I said I'm going to write a major biographical book about me. And it's one page. Just because I know Keith Urban, and just blah, 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 blah. And, it was just all trash.
Is there one thing, like you've all these people that have gone from nothing to famous and all that stuff. Like is there one thing that they all have something in common?
Authenticity.
Authenticity.
And I mean that to cover a gamut of things.
Well, you didn't even hesitate when I asked you.
Well, but it took me a long time to encapsulate it,
Right.
and realize it covers everything.
Yes, sir.
I just mentioned Keith Urban. I've known him since he first came to town.
Right.
I saw him in every little honky tonk that we've had.
Yeah.
And I remember about 5 years ago, we were at a party. We were having a celebration of a number one record for him, and waiting for him to go on and get lauded. And he walked up to me. He said, "Charlie Monk, you never change." And I still don't know what that means. But I took it as a compliment that he remembered or he liked. And we're not drinking pals. I mean, we don't hang together. And he lives maybe 2 miles from me. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got his gate is locked.
Because you've checked, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to get over them.
That's right.
So I was trying to think, and people want to know who I found the most interesting person that I ever met. Mm-hmm. Sinatra.
Okay.
Because he was world famous.
I was going to ask you that, but I didn't know like how you could even. I didn't know if you'd be able to answer that question.
Well, he came when he was here. They had a party for him, and I was invited to that party, and he showed up an hour late. But yeah, he walked up to everybody at that party, 50 people. "Hi, I'm Frank Sinatra. This is my fiancée, Barbara Marx." He did that to everybody in there.
Every single one. That's incredible. That's incredible. All right, so I could run a list of all the awards, and I could list all the awards and Hall of Fames and stuff that you've received.
You're not going to mention them,
huh? Oh my gosh! Well, I know that we'd probably have to take a bathroom break halfway through,
or a bath one
or the other, right? So Mayor Music Row. You got the Charlie Monk Lane in your hometown. Let's see. I've got a bunch of them written down here just for a second. So you founded, can I say co-founded the CRS? Is that fair? Co-founded CRS. Your publishing group was Publisher of the Year in 1998. That's an astounding. That's incredible. And that was right during. that was a big time in country music right then. That was when it really became commercial. Like. Started crossing across other platforms big time,
Well, it was also limited to what was known as a public, a PRO, a Performance Rights Organization, ASCAP.
Yep.
Not ASCAP, CSAC. I worked for ASCAP. I can't even get them right. They honored me because I had a big record with Leanne.
Leanne Rhymes?
Leanne Rhymes, thank you. She had a big hit called Commitment, and I own that song. Mm-hmm. And
great track.
I didn't put down that I was a publisher a year for that night at that dinner.
Gotcha.
So I want to make sure I get it, because there might be a songwriter listening who had nothing to do with that and go, damn, he takes credit for everything.
Yeah.
Go,
Well, you should. Did you got the Joe Talbot Award, and that was just last year.
Yep.
Right, which that honors exceptional leadership and dedication to the preservation and promotion of country music's values and traditions.
It was a real honor. It was done. That was given to me by the CMA, and it is named after a dear friend of mine who'd passed on.
Right.
And so I found it special. And they surprised me one day and gave it to me. So
In 2014, you were inducted into the Alabama Music Hall of Fame.
yep,
You're an active member in the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences,
yep,
the Gospel Music Foundation,
yep,
Academy of Country Music,
yep,
Nashville Songwriters Association,
yep,
and of course the Country Music Association.
yep.
Incredible. What a charmed life.
I made all that up though. So who's going? There's somebody in Austin going, I didn't know Charlie did all that, but it sounds good, don't it?
It
Charlie
sure
can
does.
make anything sound good.
Well, man, it's so you do have a recitation that gets released on February 10th. February 10th is when it comes out,
Yep.
and or when it came out, I should say, and it's called Coast to Coast. And they'll be, if anybody that wants to check that out, they can find it anywhere that's streaming music.
Right. Spotify and all of them, Sirius XM,
That's
Willie's
right.
Roadhouse.
That's right. And you do 2 radio shows on Sirius XM currently right now.
I do one on Saturday afternoon after 4 o'clock on Prime Country, which is music of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, that's my wife's favorite station.
Well, and I know all those guys, so
Yep.
I lie about them too. But then I do one on Sunday at the same time, 4 o'clock, on Willie's Roadhouse,
Yep.
which is really just classic stuff. Maury Robbins, Willie, and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
The older guys and gals, Patsy Cline and people like that. But again, I've known all those people.
So
I can make up more lies about them. As a matter of fact, somebody asked me one day, Charlie, all those stories you tell about those people. I go, they're all dead. There's nobody here to defend it.
that's right.
I can say I slept with one of them, and they're not here to. They can't say no.
They can't say no. Well, on that note, man, you've been a radio DJ on every platform of radio that there is, including satellite radio now. How much has satellite radio changed things as far as what you do?
Well, I think it's not limited to, obviously, to country music. We got 200 channels that play nothing but music, no commercials. A couple of them do have some commercials, but you can ride from Miami to L.A. and not be interrupted.
Right.
Music. That is, if you can get a football game instantaneous and hear it every play from here to
Yeah.
L.A.
Yeah.
Which you can't, if you're listening to UT or to Alabama here, you get out of town, you've lost it on regular radio. But if you've got your satellite radio, you can listen to it. We've got golf on radio.
Yes, we
That's
do.
a cool thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So, I think you could buy one radio and one, license or, a thing, gives you the, and listen to 100 different things without getting out of your car.
Yeah. It is pretty cool.
That is, and we got a channel called The Highway, which plays nothing but new music.
Right.
We've got 2 or 3 channels or stations that do that here, but we've got the possibility, the opportunity to have 30 million listeners to that channel.
Unreal.
Well, only half of them listen to me, but then. But we've got other channels here in town, just regular terrestrial radio.
Yeah.
That they've got 10,000 people listening to, which is very popular.
Yep.
But we've got somebody listening to every channel in every state in the union,
Right.
and that's a lot of folk.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's an unbelievable platform.
Right.
Right. So, all right. I'd love to keep you here all day, but I knew you wouldn't do that, and I can't afford you any longer, right?
You didn't make up the bed. No.
Well, I want to let's leave everybody with some gold here, some gold nuggets. Okay. So, we've talked a lot about authenticity. We talked a lot about the importance of promotion and sales. what advice, if there was a couple things that you would leave anybody wanting to start a career in music or just start a career in anything, because there's probably a lot of similarities there. What would, if a random person got 5 minutes with you, what would be the most valuable information that you think you could give them?
Well, it cost them $5,000.
A minute. A minute.
I don't think that I truly have a finality answer, meaning, I might have said something I didn't think was too cool. Mm-hmm. That might be the most impressive thing to them, that they could go, damn, I never tried that. Or, hey, I need to think about it. I need to test drive that. I think the things that if I were doing personnel or HR, that kind of stuff, if I were managing a company that the staff has gotten a little slow and stuff, and we need them to motivate them.
Yep.
I'd probably bring one of them in or take them to lunch and say, you know what? I noticed you talking to Nick Hyder the other day. Did you know he does this and blah, 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 blah? Did you even offer any opportunity for him to get involved in our company? You got basically nothing to lose.
Right.
And you've let Nick feel like he's done something good, and he may go back and tell his boss, you know what we really need to do? We need to buy into the Hitstreak. I'm glad I saw that was an H. And get Nick on our team, and see if we can combine this with just a few dollars. But you need to have the facts. You need to have the data. You need to know that, well, Nick's going to cost you X amount of dollars because he's got this thing put together, and it's just now getting into form, and he may come across something better. So he's not going to take your first offer.
Right.
So I think that if somebody really, what would they get out of sitting and talking to Charlie Monk? Meaning, what could they literally say, yeah, that they can put in their pocket or in their notebook?
Yeah.
What is it that they can go to their wife tonight when they go home? I was listening to this fool today, and you know what? I listened to him enough, he actually made sense. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't done badly. I don't know what he's done, but he hasn't done badly. Right. Nick kept making up lies about how good he's been. But you see, I think it's all personal.
There you go.
That's the key. I don't think anybody's got the answer for them. Now, somebody may have grabbed something at some time and test-driven it.
Yeah.
It worked, but it wasn't designed for them.
Right.
It was designed for anybody.
Right.
And how does one use it and multiply it?
Yeah.
It may not come out right this time, but it might come out over there next time. So I don't think there are any geniuses when it comes to success. Most of the techie guys that have become world famous rich people, they didn't even finish college.
Right. So
that is probably the best story, but they knew what they wanted to do.
There you go.
That's what they did.
The understanding the reason that I do this podcast, okay, there's multiple reasons. One, I think there's amazing people with amazing stories, and I love I love helping them tell their stories. I love doing that. It's inspiring. It never gets old. What's in it for me, not selfishly, just what's in it for me, is now I have a reason to say, Charlie, can you come to my office and let's hang? This is a great platform. It's a great networking platform for me to grow and expand my network and my relationships. And it's been a great tool. That's why I think we actually sell podcast packages to people that need to we help them launch those and help them do that. And it's a great service. Helps a lot of people. Everybody should have a podcast. You need to have 2 books though. One on all this sales and relationship stuff, and then you can tell the stories in the second book from all the stuff. Because Charlie, I just hope you understand how ahead of your time you were with this. Now, a lot of the stuff I learned, I'm able to study. The internet has endless amount of great sources to listen to some of the greatest people and the greatest business minds. You didn't have that. You had to, so if I'm always pushing people to seek the knowledge, it's so easy because it's at your fingertips. You had to seek it from other places.
Well, actually, and some of it came out of Nashville, and I'm in South Alabama, right on the Florida border.
Yeah.
Ralph Emery, who was a disc jockey overnight in Nashville. I used to listen to Ralph to find out who had new records coming out, because the personnel, the artist would go out to WSM, the radio station, and play it, get him to play it. And so those of us that were up after midnight got a chance to hear Ralph, and of course, he put that into a career himself.
That's right.
And
That's
so
awesome.
I just think that people that want to be successful don't want it badly enough.
That's it. Anything else that you would want to leave the folks with as we bring it to a close?
If you're sending money, let me give you my home address.
Well, so obviously the folks can tune in on Saturdays at 4 p.m. on Prime Country, which is channel 58 on Sirius XM. Willie's Roadhouse is channel 59. And on Sundays, you're what time?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock both days. On Saturdays,
all Eastern.
All Eastern on both days. You can catch Charlie there. If the and they can also communicate with you, right? So you have an email address that people email you all the time.
Can't call me, so don't even try. I wouldn't answer if my mama called. No, I shouldn't say that. My mother's going on. My mother was a wonderful lady, but the point is that people want to call you because they want the immediacy. And people really don't have time to talk on the phone.
That's right.
I can't text either because I have arthritis in my hands, and people forget that hurts.
Yeah.
To do that, and they'll expect you, or they will want to know why you didn't write their name down on the phone. I go, it hurts me. That's the reason I don't do it. I don't like to be hurt, especially from you. I don't even know who you are, and you just hurt me.
Well, so what's the email address they can hit you at?
monkfamily@aol.com.
monkfamily@aol.com. That's fantastic. Well, folks, Charlie, I can't thank you enough for coming. I'm serious. This means the world to me that you came in today. It was absolutely a favor, but I'm so glad that you did. I hope I can't wait for this everybody to get all of the enjoyment out of what they're getting. There's going to be tons and tons of clips we're going to cut from this and run those too. I hope one day maybe I could even get you back to tell some more stories. Just 'cause like I say, we could go on forever. But like you're a true living icon in Nashville music right here in the studio. It's just so cool, man, and always a pleasure to be around as well.
Amen.
That's right. Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. Special thanks to our guest today, living legend and icon in Nashville country music and in radio, the mayor of Music Row himself, Charlie Monk. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button so you get notified that when the next episode drops. We'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.